Okay, welcome to a podcast. We're going to be talking about the Venom movie that came out on, what was it, October 6th?
Yeah, I believe so. Last Friday it would have been.
All right. I'm here with my buddy. He's an avid comic book reader. And first off, say your name and how often do you read comic books?
Hey, I'm Logan Nicholson, and I read comics. I started getting into them about a couple years ago. I read them fairly often. I most of the time watch videos about comics to understand it more, because comics are confusing, but yeah.
Okay, so do you still watch them or read them pretty religiously?
Yeah, I read them quite a bit. I like Venom actually is one of my favorite characters, so that's why I'm pretty excited to talk about this movie today.
I'm not a comic book reader, but I've always had a strange affinity for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, back on to the subject of the movie. How would you say the plot was of the movie?
For the most part, I think the plot was okay. I think that's where the movie had to struggle if it did. I think just the big problem is how in the comics Venom's origin comes from Spider-Man, and not having Spider-Man in the movie affected it in a way. But I think it was a good enough plot to make a good movie. I thought it was okay.
Okay. So, in regards to comic book accuracy, how did the movie compare to it? You being the expert.
From my comic book experience, I know that the movie was based on the Lethal Protector storyline. So basically what that had to do was there's actually 5 symbiotes in that movie, and Venom was fighting those 5 symbiotes. And I think in terms of writing, it was pretty similar, but there's a lot of differences, such as the villain was not 5 symbiotes, it was just the one, but Riot is one of those 5 in the comics. Other than that, I thought it was pretty accurate. They really did a good job with Venom. It's the design of the symbiotes, I thought they did a really good job. Comic book accuracy, they looked good. Besides the white spider, but the director explained that, and it makes a lot of sense, because if it's not part of Spider-Man, then it's not going to have the white spider symbol, because it's just, where would it get it from? So I do get that, but other than that, it was pretty comic book accurate for the most part. Powers were good, everything.
Okay, so in regards to the number of symbiotes, weren't there only 4 in the movie shown?
Yes, I believe so. There was 4, and then 2 of them had got killed throughout, so it ended up being just 2 at the end, but yeah.
Okay, so is the 5th one at all important?
Wait, what 5th one?
You said there were 5 in the comic books.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the comics, there was 5 symbiotes, and they were basically doing what Riot did. And none of the other 5 made an appearance in the movie. But a fun fact is, one part in the movie, the Riot symbiote takes over a lady EMT, and her name, they actually gave out her name, and her name is the name of one of the 5 symbiotes, like, hosts in the comics. But other than that, Riot was the only one they actually used, because the other 2 they didn't actually name, so we can't tell for sure if they were actually one or some of the 5 or what they were. So, yeah.
Okay, so you said they nailed Venom's design. What about that was good?
Well, this kind of can take back to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3. I think in a lot of ways they did that they scaled it down a little bit, which is good for comic books, but when it comes to Venom, he's a very outlandishly designed character, I believe. So I think that's where that movie kind of struggled design-wise. But I think they did. I mean, his face design, his teeth, his tongue, his eyes are all so iconic with the character, and I think they got it so close to how they could from the comics that I think they nailed it.
Okay. Throughout the movie, we heard Venom talking to Eddie. I thought that was kind of a weird thing. Like, Where does that stem from?
Yeah, well, it kind of stems from the origin of the character, because the symbiotes have their own, like, thoughts and their own desires and stuff. Because they're an alien race, they just need a host to fully thrive. So, basically, it just is the symbiote talking with Eddie, trying to kind of connect with him so that they can coexist in symbiosis, is how it's put.
Hence the name.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any particular scenes in the movie that you could talk about?
Well, for the most part, it is an origin story of the character. I think probably the best scenes in the movie are the scenes with Venom and Eddie, both as they talk to each other and as he full on Venoms out and fights everybody. I think those are the best scenes in the movie because a lot of people that don't like the movie definitely agree that the interaction between the two characters is amazing. And I think that's where one of the strong suits of this movie comes from is the interaction between Venom and Eddie. And but just for the most part, I think the fight scenes really stuck out to me because I loved how I won't try to spoil anything, but I like how they did the final battle and how they did all the shots, the slow-mo shots and all that stuff. I thought that was probably one of the best scenes of the movie.
Okay. How about in regards to Venom's powers?
Oh, yeah. So, for the most part, they kept it pretty comic book accurate. He doesn't shoot webs like he does in the comics, but they do, and I know in one scene in particular, they do kind of get around that in a way by using just a symbiote. And I'm hoping a sequel is made, and if they do, they kind of show that more off, like he's swinging around and stuff. But, again, that's another thing where he doesn't stem from the Spider-Man character, so why would he have webs, you know?
Okay, and speaking of a sequel, they seem to have left the end pretty wide open for a sequel.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but yes, they definitely tell you that what they're trying to do for the sequel, and I'm very impressed by it, and I think for sure every comic book reader, even if you know very little about, you'll go into that post-credit scene knowing what they're setting up for. But yeah, I think it's going to be great if they can figure it out and get it written and get it shot, and I think it'll be a great movie.
Okay, I want to know about the other post-credits scene that we saw. The one that's introducing the new, is it a series?
Yes. Well, what Sony is doing here is they're making their own Spider-Verse, is how they're saying. And basically what that is they're taking Spider-Man characters, not necessarily Peter Parker himself, because they kind of have a deal with Marvel right now so he can be in the MCU, which that's a whole big thing. But they're setting up kind of a Spider-Verse as a multiverse for the Spider-Man characters. And the Sony is making a Enter the Spider-Verse movie, is what it's called. And that stars the Miles Morales characters, animated movie. And that's supposed to be within the Spider-Verse. But since they're from two different universes, they're not going to like ever coexist. Like, you're never going to, I mean, at least I doubt they're ever going to do it. You're never going to see Tom Hardy go into the animated side and be Venom in that. Or you're never going to see the real Miles Morales come into the Venom character. It's just, they're just kind of having their little fun poking at the two movies they're making, I think. But yeah.
I think that was pretty interesting. My biggest complaint with it was I'm not a huge fan of the animation, but you seem to back it up.
Yeah. From what I've seen of the Into the Spider-Verse movie, I really do like the animation style. It is different, which I do see why people are turned off by it. But it is so like comic book panels is what it's supposed to resemble, and I think they do that really well. As like you can see, in certain scenes of the movie, like the lighting shows like the little dots on the screen, as it was a old comic book panel, for like the ink spots and stuff. So yeah, I thought that's why I liked the design of it. But yeah.
So it's about time to wrap up on the show.
Okay.
So what are some closing thoughts, and what do you want to tell people at home that are wanting to get into the movies?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing is Venom going into it. Expect to be entertained, but don't expect the best superhero movie you'll ever see. I do not think it's the greatest. I think there's definitely problems with it. The writing is weird at times, but I think it is a fully enjoyable movie. And from a Venom fan as myself, I thought it was a good. So I think go into it, have fun. You know, like all comic book movies, have fun. And I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah.
All right. Once again, I'm Tyler Rezak.
And I'm Logan Nixon.
And this has been... I haven't thought of a name for the show yet.